Welcome to Peter and Ruffy's football show here on STV2. Delighted to have your company. The main talking points on tonight's programme. Pedro Caixinha says he would resign if he didn't think Rangers could beat Celtic on Saturday. Brendan Rodgers reckons Andy Halliday could have broken Patrick Roberts' leg. And two Hibs players lead the way in the PFA Championship nominations. We'll discuss those two Hibs players a little later on in the programme and look through all the nominations for the Championship. Alan Ruff is alongside me, Peter Martin, and I'm delighted to say to rival Ruffy tonight on the programme as a legend, we have two St Mirren legends, no less, in Tony Fitzpatrick and Campbell Money. Ruffy, if you don't feel intimidated, you should feel intimidated.
Well, they certainly had that fantastic cup win, which we're still all talking about, and long may it be remembered. I think when we all get to a cup final and win one, it should be legendary status, and these two guys certainly are.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the only time he will be nice to you two for the rest of the programme. It's hard going.
I was just trying to win how many World Cups they'd been at.
Yeah, I knew you were going to leather them sooner or later.
The pattern never changes.
Yeah, exactly. I'm glad you guys are here though, because we will talk all things St Mirren, that great occasion in 1987, but I've got to get your thoughts on St Mirren in 2017. Was it a good result or a bad result last night? How do you view that one with Raith Rovers? Did you want them to be beaten by Hibs, Tony?
I think, if I've been honest, yes. I mean, but to be honest, it's not really about Raith Rovers or anybody else. And OK, the result went our way last night, but it was always going to be a massive game this Saturday when we play Raith Rovers at our own park. So, of course, when a team gets defeated and it's the last kick of the ball thing, we had it the week before at Dundee United, it really does affect you. I'm not caring what type of profession you are, that's hard to take.
Yeah, and with that in mind, I mean, he made 10 changes, Neil Lennon, to the Hibs side. Some St Mirren fans must have been looking and thinking, oh, no, this is him. He's almost thrown the points to them. But James Keating's popped up late on.
As he always does. He's done it a few times. But Hibs have got quite a strong squad, Peter. So I think it was probably right for Neil to make changes. Whether he should have made 10s, another matter. But at the end of the day, they won the match. So he's vindicated in the choices he's made.
Yep, and it takes it again. It's going right down to the wire. It doesn't help the fans. They get more and more nervous, but it's everything you would want for a finish to a season, Ruffy.
Yeah, Paul, I would agree with you if you're the teams that are involved in it. As Tony's already touched on, it's a horrible experience being down there. And unfortunately, when I was at Partick Thistle, we were down there quite a lot. You know, you got hardened to it. But for the young players who are playing in these teams, it's a traumatic experience. And I keep on saying that if they don't come through, it can scar them and set them back a couple of years.
Yep, of course, John Hughes not too happy about losing that one, but of course, I think he's already admitted he'd be happy to be involved in the playoff as long as it's not straight relegation, and he's got to look forward to that nail-biting game against St Mirren on Saturday.
St Mirren's a good football side. Jack's he really turned that around with the players that he brought in. At Christmas time, he had the opportunity to have a window, and I think he brought in 7 or 8 players. I knew that's 7 or 8 players. I think they all play in his first team, and they're not a bad side. St Mirren will be okay, but once again, it's all right saying it. You still need to go and get the wins to make sure that you keep your status, and that's what makes it great.
What's the feeling like with Jack in the club now, Tony? I mean, you are there every day of the week. You'll know what impact he's had.
He's had a massive impact, to be fair. And I mean, I go way back to the Fergie days and about the town, how it was. There's a great momentum in the whole town. And Jack's galvanised the club, there's no doubt about that. Fans, players, everything. And you think, just listening to John there, and incredible, and when you look at December, January, we were 17 points behind Raith Rovers. Now we're 1 with an opportunity to overtake them. So it shows you the job Jack and that's put in. Honestly, Peter, it's miraculous, really, when you think, because personally I'm a positive person, but I thought we'd gone as well.
Yeah.
But he's completely changed it.
Yeah. Would you take a playoff?
Yes.
Happy?
Yes. Yeah, we said that right months ago. The now, yes, because as I say, where we've come from, you know, the Raith Rovers, Dumbartons, even there, they were away clear of us. You know, would have grasped you for anything. There's 2 games to go, but we'd still take a playoff, if I've been honest, yes.
Yeah, and when you look at the players that he was able to turn around, Campbell, players going out and some good players going in, and I think everybody's general view is McGinn seems to have been the catalyst for the change, transformed the middle of the park.
Certainly has, and they've got young players in the middle area that Stephen will be able to help along, like Kyle McGuinness and Stevie Mallon. And people forget that they actually sold McAllister to Derby in the transfer window, so that they actually managed to get some money in for a very, very talented young player, but have also strengthened the team as well in that period of time. So I think a lot of credit needs to go to the board for backing Jack, and I'm sure he'll admit that himself. If he doesn't get the backing for the board, then St Mirren would have been relegated. Absolutely no doubt about that.
Yeah. Do you fancy your old club to escape?
I think they will. I think they've got every chance of winning the last 2 games. I think they'll win at home on Saturday, and I know it's a tough one at Easter Road the last day, but they beat Hibs the last time they played them quite comfortably at Paisley, so I think they've got every chance. Winning the 2 games.
Well, I hope the players have your confidence on it. I mean, Tony raised his eyebrows there, but he's backing you big time on it. Well done. We might get Campbell in for the pre-match. Okay, as far as the headlines on the back pages this morning, if you were getting up, here's a look at the Daily Record. First of all, Holiday Blues. This is really a story that's emerged from Ibrox about Pedro Caixinha ordering the players back early, wants them to really get out of the traps flying for next season, but 9 days off, sometimes that can annoy the players. And Joey Barton, I'm finished. This is after the 18-month ban. I presume he'll try and appeal to get it reduced. As far as the Sun is concerned, Kenny is the Gers target. This is the latest Aberdeen player to be linked with Rangers, and whether Aberdeen will agree to that or not, I think is a long shot. As far as the Daily Mail is concerned, out of reach. This is David Murray talking about using EBTs to fund big name Ibrox signings. Of course, that case is going on at the moment and being closely followed to see how it all resolves itself. Okay, so that's the 3 looks at the newspaper. Just quickly, Ruffy, Joey Barton, I think the general consensus is that his career could be over unless he gets some sort of reduction. I think the key issue over and above that for the PFA here and south of the border is to try and educate players on the perils and the pitfalls of gambling.
Yeah, I think we've all decided that we're not zero tolerance. I think we would all openly admit, although some players think they'll get away with it, I think this sends out a message that if you think you can get away with it and you get caught, this is what's going to happen to you. So that's what we need. We need punishments. We need hard punishments. We need to let the players know that if they are caught, then this is what's going to happen. And I think it will be reduced. I think he'll appeal and he'll get it reduced, but it still sends out a message to everybody else.
Yeah, change days now, Campbell, from yourself, Ruffy, everybody playing. There's a zero tolerance attitude to it, and the players are spoken to by the PFA. I can vouch for up here on avoiding betting on any games in Scotland.
They are indeed. I mean, I think it's necessary, but I can assure you, Peter, there was a few St Mirren supporters thought I was betting against St Mirren when I was playing. So it's happened. It's happened for years and years and years that players have had a bet, whether it was in horse racing or football or whatever. But now the authorities have said that it's not on. So if you're going to do it and you do get caught, as Alan said, then you take the consequences of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And now that you've mentioned that, Campbell, I just wonder if Ruffy had a Peruvian grandfather, whether there was any kind of collusion between him and Kubias in that World Cup match. Now, it's just the way Campbell said that. I thought to myself, Ruffy, backhander, 3-1 down, and the country just absolutely shattered by it. It's not...
It's a nightmare because I had 4. Only joking.
We know you're not. For the benefit of anybody who doesn't understand, Ruffy, these are just allegations and nothing is firmed up. He's only joking. 3-1 was hard enough to take. Anyway, coming up after the break, we are going to talk about Rangers and Celtic. There's an Old Firm derby to come, and we'll hear from Pedro Caixinha and what he has to say about closing the gap. Welcome back to Peter and Ruffy's football show here on STV2. Not only Glasgow, Edinburgh, but we've got Ayr, Dundee and Aberdeen. New viewers joining us, joining a football show which covers all the divisions in Scotland. Don't forget you can join us on Saturday as well, 2 o'clock until 6. Hugh McDonald, Gordon Smith and Ruffy will be with me. We'll take you through all the games. If the ball hits the back of the net, we'll bring you the details. We've got reporters at the key games and we'll be covering that St Mirren, Wraith Rovers, nail biter as well. Join us if you can, 2 o'clock. Great thing about having Campbell Money and Tony Fitzpatrick on the programme. Campbell told me his fighting weight, Ruffy, when he was at his peak as a goalkeeper, and I have to say, you are under pressure. What was your fighting weight, Ruffy, when you were at your peak?
I was 13.7.
13.7.
Yep.
Okay. Prepare for some bad news, Campbell.
I was about 12 and a half, but to be fair to Alan, he's about 3 inches bigger than me, so that would account for the extra conditioning he was carrying at the time.
Yeah. There's a line you don't hear often. I think I'm going to write that down. Anyway, we move on swiftly. Don't even go for it, Ruffy. Let's just concentrate on the football. I can see I can actually read your mind there, and I thought we're going off air. Okay, let's look to something that, again, you can't get enough of, and that is, of course, Rangers against Celtic. There's another one on the horizon. I think Pedro Caixinha, the Rangers manager, coming out today, certainly some of the headlines suggesting that he was ashamed of Rangers' performance against Celtic in the Scottish Cup semi-final. So will there be an improvement this time? What's his aim on closing that gap?
I'm assessing it and I'm working on a daily basis. If it exists, I cannot deny it, but we want to reduce it and we will going to do it. This is not a question of time. This is a question of work, belief and commitment.
Well, if he doesn't know what it's all about with Rangers and Celtic, he knows about it now after that defeat in the Cup semi-final, Tony.
Yes, Peter, it was a bad defeat for them, not just with the result, I think the performance-wise. But credit to him, I know the way he sort of set up at the beginning didn't work, but he changed it. And if you look at the game, I know it went by them by that time, but they created a few chances near the end of the game, and you never know it 2-0. If Rangers would have scored then, what would have happened? But yeah, it's a difficult one. Celtic, they now are a tremendous side.
Yeah, they haven't defeated them this season, Campbell, but I think the pressure's on this time.
Well, it's certainly on. I mean, I never having played in an Old Firm game myself, but I think it's a difficult match for players to play in. But I think there are definite changes this week. Celtic won't have Dembele and Brown, who are 2 key players for them. The match is at Ibrox. There'll be a huge Rangers support at the game. But you would think that if Celtic play anything near where they're capable of playing, they'll still win the game. But Old Firm games don't tend to work out that way. And Rangers did well at Parkhead in the last league match. So I think if they go into it and start to put a bit of pressure on Celtic, they'll play better than they did last week. Yeah,
and as ever with these games in the build-up, there's always a headline or a flashpoint just to try and get everybody wound up, if it's humanly possible to do that anymore ahead of a Glasgow derby. But Brendan Rodgers has been speaking today about that tackle that everybody was talking about from last week, Andy Halliday on Patrick Roberts.
I think he was very, very lucky. I think, thankfully for himself, that he actually seen it. I think coming out the corner of his eye, if he's planted, then it's a broken leg. It was, yeah. At that speed, going in, that was reckless.
I think a number of people have all passed comment on it, Ruffy, wondering whether he should have got a red card. It's all hindsight now. He didn't get a red card for it.
No, I think he's fortunate if he got a yellow card, which means obviously we can't take it further because, you know, it's a difficult for... I keep hearing referees that have refereed these games before. Sometimes they say, well, let the first 5 or 6 tackles go, let the game just like bed in, you know, and then others say, well, yellow card right away. And then people say, oh, you're flashing yellow cards too early. But on that occasion, I think unfortunately for the referee, that he'd played advantage and Celtic were on the run, you know, and he played the advantage out. But if you were to go back to it, and I'm sure if he went back to it again and given the decision it would have been a red card, it wouldn't have been a yellow.
Yeah, well, the Rangers players have had a fair bit of criticism for their performance last week, and Martin Waghorn is first to admit that they've been working hard to try and show the home support this weekend that there's a different Rangers about to show up.
We've worked hard this week, we've had meetings, we've spoke about it, and we've learned from it, and we're going to take it forward from this week going into Saturday. The thing about this team is we've got a lot of big personalities, we've got a lot of character, and we're all disappointed from the weekend, and we can use that in the right way going into Saturday. 50,000 at Ibrox, last Old Firm of the season, with a big point to prove. It's set up to be hopefully a good game. I understand that we've not won yet this season, but there's always got to be time, there's always got to be someone that's going to beat them, and you've got to be positive going into these big games.
Well, if anything, Tony, you mentioned it there in the game at Celtic Park. They were in the Celtic players' faces at home. You would anticipate they're certainly going to have more possession than they did in the first half last weekend.
Without a doubt, I think they're a real dangerous team this week. You know, Celtic will know that because when you hear the players, supporters, they felt they let the club down. And that's when they'll become very dangerous. There's no doubt it'll be a different game for Celtic. They'll be in Celtic's faces. And as Campbell said earlier, I think massive loss, the boy Brown and Dembele up front. But it's always a fantastic game, isn't it, Peter? No, it catches the imagination of everybody, so I'm sure it'll be a cracker. Yeah,
here's Brendan Rodgers on the aforementioned loss of Moussa Dembele.
We just have to assess it over time, see how he reacts. You know, there's a period of time with individuals in terms of hamstrings, but it's never to say that you can't be back within that. So yeah, he was okay. He was on a bike today and moving the hamstring. So we'll see. As I said, it is a hamstring tear, not overly serious, but we'll assess it over the next 2 to 3 weeks.
I'm not going to rule him out, Ruffy, of the Scottish Cup final, because if ever, you know, and I don't want to cast any aspersions on people who've moved into management, whether it's the SFA or at St Mirren, but Ruffy, come on, it happens. They just keep him behind closed doors. Suddenly, oh, he's running, he's shooting, he's in the starting 11.
Yeah, well, obviously these guys don't know the medical conditions we worked under. You know, if you got a hamstring, you were out for 4 months, and that was it. You know, but nowadays the medical facilities they've got, you know, and the technology that they've got now. I mean, they'll definitely know deep down how long he's going to be out for. But if the manager's saying he was on a bike this morning, you know, that's obviously positive. I'd like to know where he was going on that bike.
he was delivering papers. He's fine. He's okay. Yeah, I mean, that's a positive note on it. We will wait and see if he's going to make that cup final. Players don't want to miss out on the chance of a medal. Let's talk about nominations, because the PFA Player of the Year Awards will take place at the Hilton on the 7th of May. We're really looking forward to this one. The nominations in the Championship, which is a division you guys know really well: John McGinn, Jason Cummings, Stephen Dobbie and Ross Forbes. Tony Fitzpatrick.
For me, John McGinn, to be honest. I think he's a fantastic footballer. Can pass the ball, score goals, aggressive, quick, everything about him. and he's been outstanding this year again.
He's one of those players that I think even Hibs, I mean, he obviously moved on from St Mirren, but Hibs are going to face a battle to hold on to him this summer, Campbell.
Yeah, I would have thought so. I mean, I think it's great for Hibs that they've got back into the Premier League, but keeping a hold of him again will be a priority for them. As Tony says, he's a top player.
Yeah, who's your choice?
I mean, I would agree with Tony. I think John McGinn's been outstanding in the Championship this season. I recognise the fact that Dobby scored a lot of goals at Queen of the South, but McGinn for me.
Yeah, and pushing into the Scotland squad as well. You know, he take a lot from that as well, and I think we've got a lot more to see of him. I think he's had a great season.
Yeah, okay. John McGinn getting the popular vote here. Coming up after the break, we will look at the nominations in League One and League Two. Then we'll start to look at the Premiership this weekend, because there are some nail-biting games as well, which we'll get the thoughts of Tony Fitzpatrick and Campbell Money on. We're also going to speak to Campbell about academies. If you have your own thoughts on academies and whether they're any good or not, it'll be interesting to hear the thoughts of Campbell Money on the SFA and the way ahead for that. And we're also going to talk to these guys about something they have in common, which is 1987 Scottish Cup final. Not to be forgotten if you are a St Mirren fan, and with that in mind, that's why we've thrown out that little question: who did they beat in the semi-finals? Welcome back to Peter and Ruffy's football show here on STV2. Alan Ruff is alongside me, Peter Martin. We'll get two legends from St Mirren from the 1987 Scottish Cup winning side, Campbell Money and Tony Fitzpatrick, with us here in the studio, and delighted to have them here. Ruffy still gets Partick Thistle people asking him for his autograph, 1971 no less. Hall of Famer. Does it still happen to you two guys?
No.
That's what I love. Having lived in Paisley, they're not into that. Well, let's look ahead. But I'll tell you the great thing that I was mentioning to you guys, you still all get together, the 87 team. I think that's a great friends forever.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a few of that group get together regularly, and even some of the boys that played before that, like Jackie Copeland and Billy Stark and Ricky McFarlane, the ex-manager of the team. We have a great time around about Christmas every year. Yeah,
and also this year we've been 30 years, Peter. There's a dinner on the 12th of May in Normandy Hotel where all the 1987 team, it's a dinner for them.
That's absolutely magnificent. That'll be
brilliant.
Great.
Yeah.
All the guys going to be...
all the guys, the manager, Alex Smith as well, and everybody will get together for that on the 12th of May, so we're all looking forward to that.
It's fantastic.
Sold out.
And again, Ruffy, you think, I mean, you'd have thought even if we'd have got a table at the back, just a seat, just to see the whole gala occasion. We haven't even been booked for it, Ruffy. It's a shocker. I mean, there's only so many gigs you can give to Chick Young. To be fair. Okay, let's look at League One. Livingston's Liam Buchanan, Danny Mullen, as you would expect, Ruffy. The league champions, Alloa Athletics, Jordan Kirkpatrick, and Airdrieonians, Andy Ryan. That's the nominations for League One Player of the Year.
Yeah, I think obviously Liam Buchanan jumps out, be a goal scorer, and everybody, when the voting paper comes in, they're the kind of guys that get the votes, but he's deserved it, because it doesn't matter what club he's been at, he scores goals, and he's always going to get a mention. And
I'll tell you a good thing, Campbell, League Two, I mean, we've watched these divisions and they're all nip and tuck. It's been great. Forfar and Arbroath battling it out as well, makes it even more interesting, but they've got Arbroath's Bobby Lynn, Forfar's Thomas O'Brien, and the Elgin pair, Thomas Riley and Shane Sutherland as well.
Yeah, I think there's a good selection there. I personally hope that Thomas Riley wins it because of the connection. He was a St Mirren player and he was a young player. And I think we'll speak about academies shortly, but most of these guys have come through the academy system. When they've not made it at their parent club, coming through the academies, they've gone down the leagues and they've done well down the leagues. So that in itself is evidence that the academy system can work.
Yeah, don't worry about being, not being impartial and just wanting us ex-St Mirren player to win, because if Partick Thistle were playing Real Madrid, he'd tip the Jags 2-1. That's an absolute stonewall certainty. We talked about the nail-biters in the Championship. There's a few on in the Premiership, and none more so than tomorrow night's game, the Highland Derby. It's Ross County against Inverness Caledonian Thistle, which is going to be a nail-biter. Will one of the Highland clubs go out of the division? Inverness are in a perilous state. They're 5 points adrift at the moment. With these remaining games, they have to start getting wins. Of course, Richie Foran has brought in Maurice Malpass. The manager's under a bit of pressure, and he's hoping in this match that he's got strong officials who don't make mistakes which cost them the game.
We need strong officials now for the last 5 games. Really strong officials who can handle the occasion. Some of them can't handle the occasion. They need to make sure that they send the right ones up here. I could say it's Thompson on Friday night. He can handle it. He's the top referee, and let's hope there's no more big mistakes from any of them come in the next 5 games.
I'd hate for a referee to be making a mistake that eventually leads to relegation for a club, Ruffy, and that's the type of pressures these games bring.
Yeah, but you have to say that he can't get it right all the time. You know, I think he's obviously still hurting for the Motherwell game. You know, it was there for everybody to see, but I wouldn't blame the referees. But I agree with you. I don't want a decision to harm any other club.
Yep, and of course Jim McIntyre knows all about this, just trying to keep County away from playoff or relegation. But I don't think the Ross County boss is thinking it's going to be all down to this game. This is the bottom 6 all battling it out.
I said that 8 or 9 games ago that, you know, I seen this going right to the very last game, and I don't think anything will change. Hopefully we can go and get the points required in the next couple of matches that, you know, takes that wee bit of pressure off us. But, you know, the games this season have been so tight between everyone beating each other that, you know, you can see it going to the end.
Well, you've got to be positive about this, and I might as well give you a warning. Earlier on I caught up with an Inverness fan, Laurie Spence, about this particular game, and if you are a positive person, you might actually be getting it drained right out of you now as I asked Laurie about this must-win game.
Yes, and it would be a stretch to say that I was feeling the slightest bit optimistic about it. We're 5 points adrift at the bottom. We've taken 1 point out of 9 against County this season. In none of the 3 games have we looked particularly superior to them, which is a sad state of affairs because County aren't great shakes at the moment either. But you wouldn't fancy us away from home, struggling, 1 win in 22 league games. As it's an incredibly important game, but the last 5, 6, 7 matches for Cali Thistle have been must-win matches, and we haven't been winning any of them. There's no reason to think that's going to change in a hurry.
Yeah, Laurie, after hearing you in that first answer, you put me on a complete downer now about Inverness's chances. Do you think you're heading down to the Championship?
I think you would have to be on some very good pills to not think that we were heading down to the Championship.
What about the introduction of Maurice Malpass? Will that in some ways help, or is it just a stay of execution?
Well, it's not just shutting the door after the horse has bolted. The horse is well over the horizon and just about out of sight. Hibs fans will laugh, but Malpass left Inverness with a pretty good reputation as a coach before he followed Terry Butcher south. He was always thought to be the brains behind the operation, the organiser, the tactician, whereas Butcher was the recruiter and the motivator. It doesn't bode especially well that Foran's been admitting to the press this week that bringing in an experienced coach was at the board's behest rather than his, which is particularly disturbing because it's been clear for all to see for a long, long time that Foran needs that sort of help in hand. Regardless, it's almost certainly too late, given the points that we need, the results that we need, and the massive change around in attitude in order to survive. I just can't see it making a significant enough difference.
Bearing in mind that John Hughes decided to go because there was a number of things that irked him with regards to decisions the board were making, do you feel as if this was another error on the board's part putting in an inexperienced person in Richie Foran?
Hindsight's a wonderful thing, and I think most people would suggest that the learning curve has been too steep for Foran. The flip side is that he was being groomed for this job for the last couple of years. It probably came along sooner than he or anyone else expected or really wanted. But in the time he'd been out injured with his knee problems, he'd been doing a lot of coaching, getting his qualifications, and he was seen as, if not necessarily Hughes' successor, as probably the person who would follow Hughes' successor. As for Hughes' issues with Cali Thistle, it would be fair to say that he was looking for a way out himself. Like when he did go, rather than being forced out, he was backed pretty well when he was here.
And I can't let you go without giving us your prediction then. It's a difficult one. You've mentioned all the stats which weigh heavily on your shoulders, and no doubt Richie Foran's. Who's going to win Ross County Inverness? Give us your prediction.
County have home advantage. They're coming off a decent result against Celtic, and we can't defend. So yeah, pessimist all the way here.
Oh, Laurie, I need to come up there with about 12 cases of lager. Me and Ruffy will come up to your house to try and brighten the mood.
That'd be nice, but it won't be enough.
Thanks for joining us. I've never been so demotivated. Why bother turning up on Friday?
Well, I think if Inverness were to lose this one, I think somebody very close to him better keep an eye on it.
That is the best interview ever. If you were feeling bright, sunny, and just looking forward to escaping relegation, Laurie's not the man to hang about with tonight. I don't want any St Mirren fans talking to him. That was absolutely priceless. Okay, we're going to talk academies. We're going to talk English football as well, with the legends on my left-hand side, Tony Fitzpatrick and Campbell Money, and we'll give you the answer to this St Mirren question. Well, there's your answer. Did you get it? Did you have to look it up? Did you have to cheat? If you managed to get that, within a millisecond, you must be an ardent St Mirren fan. Of course, you managed to defeat a very good Hearts side in the semi-final, Campbell.
Yeah, we did. They were an excellent side with very good players who had lost out in the league championship title the year before and the Scottish Cup final the year before against Aberdeen. So there's some really good players, Hearts.
Yep, St Mirren's 1987 Scottish Cup winning side. A great mix of experience and some youth in there as well, which brings me nicely to something up to the present day now. Campbell, you're involved at the SFA in working closely with, I think, is it fair to say, the reconstruction of how we look at academies. What do you think is going to be the biggest change that people will notice?
Well, the academy system, Peter, has been in place for a fair while now, in terms of the senior clubs having youth teams at all age levels, all the way up from under 11s up to under 17s. But it's generally felt that something needs to change to try to work towards getting the better academies playing against each other more regularly, which it is believed will help the development of the best players in the country. So we're in the process of going through that just now, and hopefully by 2018 there will be a new structure in place that includes summer football and more qualified coaches, with fewer players and fewer academies.
Forgive me for picking up on a word, as soon as you said it, I thought, it is believed, suggests to me that, is there an element of doubt in your mind, or do you think this is the best way?
I don't think I doubt that the potential for improvement is there, but we are effectively getting into something that's relatively unknown to us. The academy system, as it sits at the moment, is working to a degree. Our national under-17 team has qualified for the European Championships for the last 4 years, but it is recognised that getting players through to first team level is getting harder and harder. It's more difficult now for young players to get through to the first team at the top clubs than it's ever been, and that may be down to the quality of the player, but it may be down to the opportunities that are given to young players as well.
And forgive me for excluding the two guys just on this last point on it. You mentioned there, the academies will eventually shrink. Is there a criticism, is there a fair criticism that some people suggested that sometimes it was more about filling shirts rather than actually looking for the quality to rise to the top?
Well, that's part of the reason for looking to decrease the number of players that are involved with the top academy teams. It's fair to say that we are looking to try to do that. The numbers that are in Club Academy Scotland at the moment are too high, and we need to try to reduce the numbers and try to get into a situation where the better academies are playing each other more often.
Yeah, and with that in mind, Tony, it's in Mirren, you'll have first-hand experience. You've got young players coming through. I talked about your 1987 side there. That was half the side was under 20.
Yeah, and our academy is sort of gold standard, which we're very proud of, and we're producing players. When you mentioned John McGinn, Kenny McLean, there's two already, but in the team now you've got McGuinness, you've got Malin, Morgan, Baird playing regular football from your academy. As Campbell said, I've been out to a lot of the meetings and I'm quite excited about the actual change, to be honest. The standards they're looking to put in place, I think common sense, summer football for the younger players, Julie's age band at 17s or so, which helps a lot. The only wee criticism I would have is we seem to do really well up to 17. So after 17, what happens between 17 and 20, 21? That's where I think we need to really look at.
Well, can I ask you this, Campbell? Is the onus on the player and his application in this mix as well? Because it's all right saying the structure needs to be looked at, and as Tony highlighted there, 17 and then something happens to them. I mean, should we be expecting the players to have the same application as they did in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s with their technical ability?
Well, nothing's changed really, Peter. If you work hard enough, you tend to get the rewards that come your way. And there are players who are getting into first teams. There's just not as many as there used to be. And as Tony's already mentioned, two that came through the St Mirren system, John McGinn and Kenny McLean, and they've gone on to do really well where they are. They are playing with top clubs in Scotland. And there's nothing to say that any player who works hard won't do well in the game. The opportunity to make really good money in football these days is there. It's something that can set you up for life. But ultimately, it's at the Scottish FA and the SPFL's behest to provide a structure that allows the development of players. Now, whether that's down to loan systems that helps players get more first team experience, all these things are being looked at the moment. There are positive signs that we could get something that might help to develop things. But until it's actually in place and we can see the benefits of it, we won't know.
And last point on this, you mentioned there about players that have reached a particular level in Scottish football. I hate to be blunt about it, Scottish football standing in the game has dropped.
Yeah.
So as we talk about levels, your 87 cup winning side there had a Champions League winner in it, and in Ian Ferguson, a man who had won 9 Premier League medals and was a top midfielder for Rangers. Do you think and do you sense that people know that apart from providing top quality players in Scotland, there are levels to go up to produce the standards that we want for international football?
But as I've alluded to, Peter, both Paul Lambert and Ian Ferguson were given first team opportunities at very early ages. That's the difference. I mean, Rangers have got somebody at the moment, I don't want to protect anyone in particular, but Billy Gilmour seems to be the name in everybody's lips at the moment. Billy Gilmour is an extremely talented young player. Now, whether he stays at Rangers or moves elsewhere will be Billy's decision. But I think the opportunity for Billy to play first team football relatively soon, when I say that within the next couple of years, is there if Billy chooses to stay where he is.
Yeah, well, there's a bit of advice. If ever I've heard it, Ruffy, we watched Billy Gilmour last week, and when he was on the ball, great touch, vision, excitement, you know, can bring players into the game.
I think it's no different for any of the other times. It's all about advice that these kids have been given. You know, they all want to be big time, they all want to be at big clubs and that, but certainly I think the thing we've all learned is playing games. Even when we were young, the more games you get, the more experience you get, the more comfortable you get, and it just brings you on leaps and bounds.
Yeah, okay. It's something I'm sure, Campbell, we could probably actually just dedicate a whole programme to it, but then Ruffy wouldn't be hanging about with me much longer. It's one of those ones that you can see his face as soon as like, oh, youth football. But I'll tell you, it's a great insight. I'm delighted that you opened the door on that for us, because it is a brilliant topic. Okay, a couple of things I want to talk about before we go. Ruffy, down south, David Moyes, Sunderland fans asking him to quit. He's hanging in there. Should he be allowed to go down to the Championship and build a team to take them back up?
Well, I thought he'd already be given assurances by the owners that that was the way ahead. Obviously, people will be disappointed, particularly the supporters dropping down a league, but I think they have to look at Newcastle. Sometimes you have to go down to go back. There's certainly enough money in the parachute payment to still invest in the club, and I think Davies due another shot.
Yeah, and Campbell, if you look at ex-St Mirren players and want them to really do well, I always look at Scots down south and desperately want them to succeed.
Absolutely, the more that are doing well will ultimately help the national team. And we've got some good players that are playing in England at the moment, and we've got some young ones that will go down to England in the future, definitely. And
I'm going to leave the last point to you, Tony Fitzpatrick. If ever any footballer, young footballer, wanted to look for someone to take a leaf out of their book and try and emulate, Darren Fletcher's in contract talks with West Brom to extend his stay there.
Incredible, and that's, as you say, that name. For any young player, it's incredible what this guy's done through illness, through everything you can imagine. He's fought through that, and you've got to, the thing for young players, but it's attitude and practice all the time. They've got to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, couldn't have picked two better guests to join myself and Ruffy tonight. Hopefully you've enjoyed it from a St Mirren perspective, from an SFA perspective, from just being positive. Ruffy and myself, we are getting into a car now. We're leaving Campbell and Tony. We're heading up to Inverness to save Laurie Spence from the derby tomorrow night, because it doesn't look good. I mean, I don't know if 12 cases of beer will do it. I'm not advocating heavy drinking. I'm just trying to take his mind off Inverness getting relegated. It's been an absolute joy having Campbell Money, Tony Fitzpatrick. Join us tomorrow night. Hugh McDonald will be our guest on the programme. Good night.